Today we are going to learn a little bit more specifics about matrices, and we are going to learn how to enter them into our calculator, perform operations on them once they're in our calculator, and also one really lovely trick for using what are called augmented matrices and reduced row echelon form. I know that sounds fancy. It's not hard, I promise. To solve linear systems. This is especially helpful for those tricky 3x3 systems that take so long to do by hand. So, to enter matrices into the calculator, I've got all the things you need to press written out here so that you can look back at them. So you're going to hit your second button and then the X inverse button. So what that looks like on the calculator, of course, here's your second button. And here's the X inverse button. The reason we do second X inverse is because above the X inverse button in blue or whatever color your second button is, it says matrix. So that's the matrix menu. So we're essentially pressing second matrix to get to the menu that we want. And it says go over to the edit menu. When you press second matrix, you're going to get a menu that looks something like this. So names, math, edit. Edit is what you want to be in when you are going to enter and or change a matrix that is entered. So you just need to select which one you want. If you don't have any matrices in there that you need, you could obviously start with A, which is choice 1. So go over to edit, select the matrix you want to edit by pressing the number that corresponds to it. Again, you can typically just use A unless you're wanting to save some, which we will be wanting to save some here with our group assessment activity that we're going to be doing soon. So when you select the matrix that you want to edit, it's going to, at the top, have dimensions for the matrix. And as you change the dimensions, the entry spaces will change with it. So if it starts out as a 2x2 and you make it 3x3, it's going to add more blocks in the matrix to correspond with that. So you can see down here is where I entered some dimensions when we get to that example, so 3x4, and then you can see all the entries that would pop up, and there's 3 more over here. So you enter matrices there. You just keep pressing enter and putting in the entries that you want. When you want to do matrix operations, you're not going to want to be in the edit menu. You'll want to be in your main home screen. And so let's say you want to, enter a matrix A, and then you want to multiply that by a matrix B. Because we probably wouldn't enter the matrices to just do addition or subtraction, because that's probably quicker to do by hand than it is to enter the whole thing. But matrix multiplication is probably enough side work that you'd rather have the calculator do your work for you. So you would enter matrix A, tell it the dimensions, write the actual entries. You would enter matrix B the same way. Then to perform matrix operations, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to press second and then your matrix menu, which is the X inverse button. But instead of selecting the edit, you're going to select names. So the first screen, you've already entered A, so if you've already entered something, it should have the dimensions out to the side, so it'll say 2x3 or 2x2 or whatever it is. So you would just select the one you want. So if you want to do A times B, you would press 1 to choose A. That will automatically take you back to your home screen. So then choose your operation, probably multiplication, so press your multiplication key. And if you want to multiply times matrix B, again, you have to already have the second matrix entered, but once you do, then you can just do second matrix menu again. In the names menu, select the second one, and then press your enter, and it will automatically do it for you. Now, the reason why we have added matrices to the curriculum here for you guys is, first of all, you're going to be doing more with it when you get to honors pre-calculus. But second, because Matrices are really truly useful for real world word problems where you have lots of data and there are lots of jobs that have lots of data. So matrices easily organize data, just like a table. But the great thing about a matrix that you don't have with a table is that you can perform an operation on a table. So you can take two matrices and multiply them by each other. So I'm going to show you what I mean here with a couple examples. So use matrices to organize the following information about car insurance rate. So you see we've got information for this year as well as for next year. And within each of those two categories, this year and next year, we have information for one car and information for two cars. And within that, again, you can see lots of data. Each of those subcategories has three categories of its own: comprehensive, collision, and basic. And then they all have values. So I think most of you can successfully enter those into a table. And entering it into a matrix is no different. We are going to put titles on them just like you would a table. So we're going to have one matrix that's going to represent this year. And we're going to have another matrix that is going to represent next year. So we'll call next year matrix B, and we'll call this year matrix A. In this case, so we've titled it just like you would for a table. And now we're going to organize it. So we need some column titles here. So in each of them, the subcategories, we've got one car and two car. So I'm going to make a column for one car and for two car. And within each of those, I have three choices. I have comprehensive, collision, and basic. So just like I would with a table, I've got the categories and the titles out front, but I'm going to enclose this in a matrix that is going to be 3 rows by 2 columns. So the 3 rows are the types of insurance, comprehensive, collision, and basic, and the 2 columns are one car and two cars. So now I'm just going to enter the values. So this was 612, 15. Can't see my dot there. Then you've got 518, 29, and 486, 91. For 2 cars, you've got 1150, 32, 984, 16, and 892, 51. Okay, go ahead and do the next year's matrix and pause it real quick, and when you come back, then just check your answer. I don't think I should have to do too much explaining. I think you guys should get this pretty easily. Alright, so just filling in all my values. Hopefully you've got all of yours in the right place here. Okay, so we have organized all of our information into a lovely matrix for this year and a lovely matrix representing next year. Example 2 says use the matrices you wrote in example 1 to write a matrix that shows the monthly changes in car insurance payments for this policyholder from this year to next year. So we're looking at each of the categories and we want to show monthly changes. Now, if you want to know changes from this year to next year, that's going to be the difference. But it doesn't just want the difference, because most of you could get the difference is subtraction. It wants monthly. So think about what you would be doing if you were just taking this data, not just with the matrices, but what would you do, what operations would you perform if you wanted to go ahead and figure that out by hand. Hopefully most of you would get B minus A, because that's the difference. And then monthly means you're going to divide by 12, or in this case multiply by 1/12, because we don't have matrix division. So if you want to divide, you have to multiply by the reciprocal. So you are using your calculator here. That's the reason for this. This is not hard math. All of you can subtract and multiply by 1/12. But it's far easier to enter these two simple matrices and then press this into your calculator than it is to individually subtract each corresponding entry, divide each corresponding entry by 12, and record your answer. So that's the reason we like matrices, is because it saves us time. So you can go ahead and enter these matrices into your calculator as A and B, and then try doing 1/12 B minus A. And go ahead and pause it to do that, and then unpause to see if you've gotten the correct answer. All right, so your correct answer matrix should look something like this. Notice that the monthly changes are not very much here. The highest is still less than 50 cents. So monthly changes for those car insurance amounts. All right, let's try another one. Use matrices to organize the following information submitted to sponsors from 2 lacrosse teams. So we've got the women's team and the men's team, and then the costs for the equipment, so the sticks, the balls, and the uniform. So first, we are just organizing it into matrices. So I am going to make one of my matrices that represents equipment. And I need my categories of women's and men's, because they had different amounts of orders. And then of the equipment categories, we have the sticks, the balls, and the uniforms. So once titling it is the hard part, putting the information in is easy. So women's, 5 sticks, 15 balls, 16 uniforms, done. Men's, 8 sticks, 22 balls, 17 uniforms. Now, if you had trouble and were not able to get the answer in example 2, do not clear out your matrix from A or B. Just make this C so that you're not writing on top of it, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to help you find a mistake, is if you still have the information in your calculator. So we're going to make this matrix C. Now, we also need information for costs, and there's a couple different ways that you can set matrices up. So some people might have, for matrix C, if you did this on your own, maybe instead of a 3x2 matrix, you did a 2x3 matrix, and you put women's and men's on the left and sticks, balls, uniforms as the columns. That's okay. Likewise, when I made my cost matrix, so I'm going to call this matrix D, I made mine like this. You might have made yours, instead of making it a 1 by 3, maybe you made yours a 3 by 1. And that's okay if you did that. So I've got C and D. Now before you actually enter these into your calculator, having something different than me is great. That's fine. However, if you look at example 4, it asks us to write and use a matrix operation to find the total cost of equipment for each team. So we want to know the women's cost, the men's cost. So we're essentially going to be taking the number of sticks, balls, and uniforms times those costs and adding them all together. Again, you could do it by hand, but if you get quick with matrices, it's just a little bit less work to punch it in the other way, especially if you're performing multiple operations on a single set of data. So here's the tricky part. You're multiplying. And matrix operation, remember, is only defined when the middles match. So the way I wrote my matrices, this matrix, let me use a darker color here, this matrix has 3 rows and 2 columns. And this one has 1 row and 3 columns. Now, I cannot take matrix C times matrix D because the middles do not match. 2 and 1 do not match. However, the outsides match. If you put them in the opposite order, D times C, you've got 1 by 3 times 3 by 2. Now the middles match, and I should get a 1 by 2 matrix answer. So make sure that whenever you're setting operations up, that you set your matrices up, and you might have to rearrange them. Instead of having a 1 by 3, maybe there would be a case where you would have to rearrange it to make it a 3 by 1 instead. But whatever rearranging you have to do, do it so that you can perform your matrix operation. So now that you know that and you've got these the right in, you can put them in this way. You'll just have to do D times C instead of C times D. So go ahead and do that in your calculator. Hopefully you come up with a matrix that looks like this, which means that it's going to be $925 total cost for the women and $1,167 total cost for the men. Again, if you were having trouble with that, I can help you, but leave it in your calculator so that I can look and see and try to find your mistake with you. All right, last learning goal is the fancy sounding augmented matrices in reduced row echelon form. This is actually super simple, and I'm not going to walk through the whole thing because I walked through the whole thing here. But I am going to walk you through the beginning, and that is to convert from the system, which is right here, to the augmented matrix. So an augmented matrix means that you don't have any of the variables. You just have the coefficients and the constants only. So the augmented matrix, you'll notice that the first column represents all the x coefficients, the second column is the y coefficients, and the third column are your z coefficients. Fourth column is your constants, what they were equal to. So these over here. So that is how you always create an augmented matrix. It has to be in order. You can't mix around x's with z's and interchange things. You need to go x's, y's, z's, constants in that order. So now what you need to do is enter this matrix. So if you've still got A, B, C, and D in there because you had some problems earlier, then use matrix E. If you had no problems and were able to get through everything fine, then you can go into matrix A. But go into a matrix, say that this is a 3 by 4, and start entering the whole thing in there. Again, I'm not going to walk through that entire part. If you need to pause and read it, you can certainly do that. But once you've got the whole thing in there, you're going to return to your home screen by quitting second mode. And now for the first time, we're going to use the Matrix Math menu. So you're back on your home screen. You are going to hit your second matrix, so second, and then the X inverse key takes you to this matrix menu, and you're going to scroll over so that the math is highlighted. Then you are going to need to keep scrolling down to item B. Double check that it is indeed item B. Some of the newer calculators, I just want to make sure that isn't changed. But what you are looking for is RREF. Now, look at the difference between that and A. A is just REF. You want RREF because it stands for Reduced Row Echelon Form. If you choose the wrong one, you're not going to get the right answer. So, Matrix Math, RREF, and then step 5, when you hit enter to select it or choose B, it's going to go back to the home screen and you're just going to see RREF and then a blank parenthesis basically. You have to tell it what matrix to take reduced row echelon form of. So this letter again is interchangeable. If you entered it in E, you're going to have to put E there. Again, remember you choose the name of the matrix by going into the matrix menu, second, X inverse, and then choosing the number that corresponds with the letter. So 1 goes with A, 2 goes with B, so on and so forth. So select your matrix name, and then don't forget to close the parentheses. Then press enter. Hopefully, you will see a very lovely looking reduced row echelon form matrix that looks exactly like this. Now, if you don't, try it again, and if you're still having problems, we can look at it tomorrow, but don't delete what you have in your calculator. What this is telling you is that X is 2, because 1x equals 2 is the equation. 1y equals -1, and 1z equals 4. So we read our solution from this as this, and then list it as an ordered triple. Down at the bottom, I put how you can identify a no solution and infinitely many solution cases when you're looking at matrices, so make sure you pay attention to those and know the difference. Hopefully you feel confident entering matrices in your calculator. We're going to do a bunch of practicing with it tomorrow in class and for homework as well. Again, please don't delete the matrices out if you were having trouble so that I can help you more quickly. That is it.